Message this morning, this Easter morning, this Passover week, is choose love. I want to begin with a poem from the mystic sage Rumi. The Lord of love wishes me to get out of myself. The Lord of love wishes me to get out of myself. He wishes me to sit in freedom. I was constantly involved with ambition, and now he tells me to break all the chains. I was constantly involved with ambition, and now he tells me to break all the chains. On this calendar day, on April 12th, but in another year, 1925, Paramahansa Yogananda offered his first Easter message at Mount Washington in Los Angeles, California. It was another time and place, but of course the message remains the same, because the spiritual message of this time is an eternal message, one that is true regardless of the time, regardless of the age, regardless of the place or the outer condition. And that message is that we are here to discover our soul freedom. We're here to awaken to peace, awaken to our inherent joy, and to live our divine life, the soul-guided, soul-inspired life. No matter where we are, no matter who we are, no matter when the time is. I'd like to read to you from his book, his commentary on the Christian scriptures, the second coming of Christ. And here is one of his Easter messages. He said, "Resurrect yourself. As Christ resurrected his consciousness from the sepulcher of mortal limitations, so you must learn to resurrect your mind by meditation from the tomb of material desires and body confinement to the consciousness of omnipresence. Resurrect your calmness from beneath the soil of restlessness. Resurrect your wisdom from the enshrouding earthliness of ignorance. Resurrect your love from beneath the sod of mundane human attachment with its limited love for family, society, and country. Let it expand to be divine love for all. As Jesus withdrew his mind from the body by ecstasy and united it with the all-pervading spirit, so through the consciousness of Christ developed within yourself by constant meditation, unite your soul with the omnipresent spirit. Unite your life with eternal life." The call of this time, this Holy Week, the call of freedom, is ever with us. And of course, perhaps at this time, it is more insistently with us, to resurrect our love from the shadows of fear, to resurrect our compassion from the shroud of distractions, to resurrect our hope from the darkness of despair, and to resurrect our clear knowing and our sense of purpose from the tomb of confusion. Yoganandaji's message that day and mine today is really no different. It's a call to heed the soul life, and that now is the time, right where we are. I was drawn to the words of St. Paul in Romans, the 13th chapter, The night is nearly over. The day is almost here. The night is nearly over. The day is almost here. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. In this satsang series that I have been offering online, I've been exploring with you the choices that we can make to keep turning towards soul freedom, to keep turning towards that liberation, to resurrect ourselves through superconscious meditation and making the choices that are in harmony with the soul. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 16th chapter, we find the description of the divine qualities or sattvic qualities within us that we can cultivate. And you can think of that as being our armor of light. That which brings our soul qualities forth, lets that light shine into the world. And it is contrasted in the 16th chapter of the Gita with the deeds of darkness, the lower drives and tendency that obscure the soul. And when we go to the 16th chapter of the Gita, not only does it delineate these qualities for us, but it gives us the promise that is for all of us about our divine life. Two paths. Lord Krishna says, be fearless and pure. Never waver in your determination or your dedication to the spiritual life. Give freely. Be self-controlled, sincere, truthful, loving, and full of the desire to serve. Realize the truth of the scriptures. Learn to be detached and to take joy in renunciation. Do not get angry or harm any living creature, but be compassionate and gentle. Show goodwill to all. Cultivate vigor, patience, will, purity. Avoid malice and pride. Then, Arjuna, you will achieve your divine destiny. Other qualities, Arjuna, make a person more and more inhumane. Hypocrisy, arrogance, conceit, anger, cruelty, ignorance. The divine qualities lead to soul freedom. The demonic, the lower tendencies lead to bondage. But Krishna says, do not grieve, Arjuna. You were born with these divine qualities. Do not grieve. You were born with these divine qualities. And of course, that promise is the promise for us all, and it is the consistent teaching of yoga that we are all born with those divine qualities, those divine attributes that are innate within us, and we are destined to awaken, to know that truth of our being and to live it. And in our tradition of Kriya Yoga, we have been instructed and inspired by the masters to make that our focus now, not later, not when this time of difficulty is over, but now. Our focus should be living the soul life, being liberated in this lifetime, liberated from the pull of fear and despair and anger and resentment and its lower drives, but being free and cultivating those soul qualities, living the soul life right where we are, right now, rising up. So in the earlier messages of the Sunday satsangs, I talked about the soul powers that come to us as we cultivate these qualities, and we were looking at them as they relate to the various chakra centers and the energies. in the subtle body, starting with stability, finding a spiritual foundation in our life, discovering what we can count on when everything is moving and unchanging, everything is so uncertain and unstable, learning that we can turn within and discover that which is unmoving, unchanging, that which is indeed our very essence, the essence of our being. And then discovering our creative power, that is a spiritual power that allows us to use our mind and our imagination creatively and to bring forth divinely inspired solutions. And at the third level, the third chakra, the power of firm determination. And for this time, for us all, it's so important. And it helps to remove our despair and our suffering if we can touch on that power of determination to learn what we can from this time and to be determined to allow it to change us, to transform us, and to have the vision of this transforming our entire world in ever positive ways, even in the hour of our darkness, to see through our creative imagination and our determination this vision of light. And today we move to the fourth chakra center, which is the heart center. And the directive there, the power there is for us to choose love. There's a leap that takes place from the third to the fourth chakra, which is the fitting leap for this Easter day, which is the surrender of the ego-based identity and turning our lives over to the care and the direction of the divine self, of the higher true self. As Rumi put it, the Lord of love wishes me to get out of myself. He wishes me to sit in freedom. I was constantly involved with ambition, and now he tells me to break all the chains. The message of soul liberation of this holy time is to follow the prompting of love, the capital L, the divine prompting, and to release ourselves from the downward pull of fear. It is interesting that the list of divine qualities that I read from the Bhagavad Gita, the 16th chapter, the first quality that is listed is fearlessness. So to bring out these divine qualities within us, we start with fearlessness, which raises quite a question. How can we be fearless in a time that would have us contract in fear? As the teachings of yoga tell us, well, one of the best things you can do is cultivate the opposite. So when we feel fear, cultivating the opposite quality is to cultivate love, to cultivate courage. Courage comes from the root word kor, for heart, for love. Can we be without fear ever arising? Can we be fearless? I don't know. Perhaps that is possible. But I think in the meantime, we have the most powerful practice of our time, short of being fearless without ever experiencing fear. We can begin to fear less. And I know we can fear less by loving more. It's a beautiful formula. Fear less by loving more. There's 2 steps I think we can take to bring that into our daily life, into our daily practice. Think of it as a 2-step dance move. To fear less, start by think less. Think less. And by that, I mean to learn how to bring the mind back from the future or the past. And to follow the directive, in a sense, of staying home, staying in, staying right where we are, awake, aware, in this present moment, instead of ever battling these constant fears with the future. Come back to the present moment. Think less, worry less. And when we do, when we get quiet, we discover that right where we are, we have enough. We are enough. And out of the fullness of our own nature comes the inspiration, comes the peace, comes the love that is needed for whatever it is to come next. And Jesus said, take no thought for tomorrow. Basically, he was saying, don't worry. Don't let your mind move into the future and worry. It wasn't, of course, any kind of prohibition against wise planning or using our creative imagination and bringing forth our creative abilities. But it was a remedy for fear. It was how to fear less. Do not let your mind be troubled. Seek first the kingdom of God, the reality of your being, and you will discover that love is right where you are. So, first step is think less. And we could say, as Yogananda would say, meditate more. Think less, meditate more. And the second step is to love more. So think less, but love more. And by that, I mean to choose love. Whenever we are facing a choice before us, what to say or do, let us ask ourselves, what would love do? In this case, what would love do? We fear less. We lessen our own fear. Anytime we can genuinely extend ourselves on behalf of another, whether it's a kind word, a generous deed, or simply a wave to someone in the distance. I have been heartened on my little walk around the neighborhood if I encounter someone and they move to the other side of the street, following the guideline to social distance, but they do so as they acknowledge me and wave. And I find that quite heartening, and I really find it to be an act of love. And I wave back and share my love with them. The narrow place of bondage is the place of contraction within our own heart, of self-absorption and self-concern. Liberation is love, and love is liberation. In our home, in our families, on the front lines, liberation is love, and love is liberation. This is such an extraordinary time, calling for extraordinary courage, qualities of love, compassion, the ability to fear less and to love more. We see it and we hear about it daily, the acts of courage from those on the front lines. And for many of us who are in lockdown, who are sheltering in place, we might feel about this time a readiness to bolt, to do something, to gather with our family, with our friends, to get out, to go to a restaurant, to go to back to our office, to school, to a workplace, to go somewhere. But we are instructed to care for others by social distancing. We are really instructed to love more, to care for others, to stay and to stay in. A very interesting thing occurred as I was preparing this message to share with you today. Every year at Easter time, I have a little book of poems, collected poems by Wendell Berry, and I have a favorite one for the spring that I go to that is about purification, sort of letting go of everything from the winter past and entering into spring. And last night when I went to the shelf and took down the book and opened it to find that reading, instead it opened to a page that is just before the one that I ordinarily read. And this is a poem I don't remember ever seeing before. I'm inclined to think it might have just appeared, but the poem is called Stay Home. I will wait here in the fields to see how well the rain brings on the grass. I will wait here in the fields to see how well the rain brings on the grass. In the labor of the fields, longer than a man's life, I am at home. Don't come with me. You stay home too. I will be standing in the woods where the old trees move only with the wind and then with gravity. In the stillness of the trees, I am at home. Don't come with me. You stay home too. Such a wonderful poem to find for this time, pointing towards what it can be for us to stay home wherever we are, when our thoughts settle, when we can be where we are. We move from fear to love, from bondage to liberation. We discover the resources we need to do what we can, and in this time to contribute to the well-being of those far and near. I want to close with revising Rumi's poem as an affirmation for us today. The Lord of love called me out of myself. The Lord of love called me out of myself. I am sitting in freedom. The Lord of love called me out of myself. I am sitting in freedom. Once I was constantly self-absorbed, filled with ambition. Now I have broke all the chains. Namaste.